Greetings, folks. This is DC Investing. I've reached financial independence, and I'm trying to talk about topics that can help other people on their pathway to financial independence. And the thing that I thought I'd talk about is kind of an interesting take on the assassination of Charlie Kirk this week. I live in Utah, and that event occurred in Utah. I was actually traveling with my family in Ohio at the time, and we saw the news updates and a lot of the things that happened. We're just kind of shocked that that could occur here in our home state. And it's been interesting watching the world's reaction to this event and how it's affected many people. And the takeaway that I wanted to kind of discuss today is not on the spiritual side of the event, but rather on the financial side. And just kind of give a message to the fathers out there in the world to say, things can occur in life that it's our duty to kind of be aware of and to be able to protect our family from those things. And so, there's four different ways that I think that bad things can happen to us in this world. The first thing is our own bad choices can bring about misfortune in our life. So, if we choose to spend unwisely, then we get the results from our own bad choices. Or if we choose not to invest or not to save, we will someday reap the rewards of our own bad choices. Or if we choose to indulge in drugs or alcohol to extremes, or not take care of our bodies, we'll reap the rewards of those bad choices. So our own actions can certainly impact the financial well-being of our lives and ourselves. So that's one way. And then you can have accidental occurrences, from yourself. You may not intend to crash your car into something. It was just an accident. That can happen to us in our own lives. And so you kind of have to be ready for accidents to happen. You can have occurrences of nature that can cause misfortune to your family, or yourself. Natural disasters can occur: hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, floods, wind. Just the way life happens can cause something to occur that's bad for your life. But then you have to extend that into the effects of other people. So you can be influenced by an accident from someone else's decision, an accidental decision, whether you're driving down the road, they're not paying attention and crash, they run into your car. So you can be affected by accidental decisions by other people. But then lastly, you can also be affected by the sheer evil of someone else who their choices cause disaster in your own life. And that's really kind of the thing that happened in Charlie Kirk's example. Is he didn't deserve what occurred. It was pure evil working against him that caused that that murderous event. But all of those things are things that can occur in our lives. And so as providers and fathers, we need to be ready for those disasters and still protect our family. And the thing about Charlie Kirk is that he was really a worker. He had obtained wealth through his business, and financially his family will be well protected over the next many years. I saw somewhere that he'd amassed something like $30 million worth of assets. And kudos to him for doing difficult things for a long time to be able to get that. But his wife and children will be financially protected for a long time. But then also he has a group of friends, and I imagine a church congregation also, that will stand by his family for their entire lives to help watch out for that wife and those kids as they get brought up. And nothing will replace Charlie in that family, but the surroundings that is around the family, I would imagine, provide a really strong foundation for them for his absence. So as fathers, kind of ask yourself the question: do you have you provided financially for your family, and also have you provided a a support structure around them so that if you are removed from this life, is there something in place that can teach your kids the principles that will give them a good life? Is there a support structure for your wife? So if you're gone, do you have family members who can stand by her, or neighbors that will stand by her? So really kind of think about that. And if you find that something is lacking there, then, it's time to put some of those in place. Now, this, like I said, this is a more of a finance aspect behind things. But, emotional and mental health are definitely something that help with finance. But think about your life insurance situation. If you don't have enough in assets and passive income and stocks and those sorts of things to be able to support your wife and kids um, throughout the rest of their life, then the principle there is look at your life insurance, because any of those four things could happen to you. You could make a mistake and it could take you out of this world. Something evil could occur that could take you out of this world. A natural disaster could occur that takes you out of this world. um, and have you provided enough for your family? And so one of the things that I did early on, when we bought our house, is I got a life insurance policy that would at least cover the cost of that house. So I think our house originally cost $127,000. So the very first thing I did was got a term life insurance policy for $150,000, so that if I was removed from this world, the house would be paid for. I knew that my wife would have to work, but that was before we had kids. And then once we got children, then I added to that life insurance. I had twice my salary of life insurance through my employer, because I had started as an engineer. Um, I think before, soon around the time that my first son was born. And so that was, I don't know, $120,000 of life insurance. And then we added another $350,000 policy. And this was like 20 years ago. So, the value of these would have gone up. So, all around, there was at least $500,000 worth of life insurance that I put in place, so that should I pass away, um, my family was taken care of. And so, I got term life insurance. These were 20-year terms. That was, kind of the duration of when house payments would be paid for, and when, the kids would be out of the house and grown up. And so, kind of think about that aspect of your life. Do you have enough life insurance so that if you are gone, that your wife and your kids are still taken care of? And kind of looking back, I think I might have been a little light on the coverage for my family. I mean, I had kind of considered, hey, we'll have enough life insurance to cover the cost of the house, and a few years of living expenses, so that my wife has a chance to get back on her feet and then can get back to work and help with the family. But really, after watching her interact with the kids over the long time, my kids really needed my wife to be at home. She was really aware and present. Always knew what was going on in the kids' life. And if I had passed, at some point, I do believe that she would have needed to go back to work to provide for herself, her family. So I probably should have, looking back, had a little bit more life insurance. So maybe that's kind of something to really think about, is, have you really provided enough insurance so that your wife, in taking care of the family, really truly can stay home 100% of the time to watch out for and provide and care for your kids? Because they're just so much better at the needs of the kids, I think, than us as you know men are. I know we can do it, but I think they have special gifts. And I certainly saw that in my own wife's life. So, you think about how much life insurance do you need? The cost of houses has gone up so much, and the average cost of a house here in Utah is like $650,000. So, I started out with $150,000 in life insurance. Today, I'd have to have that $650,000 just to cover the cost of the house. To pay that thing off. But really, to set your spouse up so that she doesn't have to work for the rest of your life. I would think the minimum would be about $1 million, because you could put that into the market, pull 4% a year from that. That would be about $40,000. You might be able to make do with that for a long time, but I think that's, it would be harder. So maybe consider a $2 million policy, so that if you pass away, the life insurance money comes, they put that in the market, and comfortably they can live off that for the rest of their life. Pulling in the equivalent of an $80,000 a year withdrawal. That's a 4% of $2,000. Not sorry, $2 million. So just kind of, that's the thought. This is kind of a tragic event that happened, but that something like that can happen to any of us, and our duty as protectors and providers is to provide for our family. And should you pass away, do you have enough in assets and income to be able to take care of your family when you're passed on? And it's worth the time and effort to put those insurances in place so that we are protecting and providing. And maybe this is a good chance to take a look. How much life insurance do you have? And if you were removed from this earth for any reason, is your spouse and your children provided for over the next many decades to come? And finance is one part of it. If you think, hey, if you're removed from the world, even if you're just providing for them economically, have you left any messages for your kids? Hey, write something down that says, hey, when you're 15, this is advice that I would give, and when you're 20, this is advice I would give, and when you're 25 or 30, do you have some spiritual messages that you could create now, that should you get removed from this earth life, that would exist as advice for your kids? That might be something else that would be useful to do. So I don't know, just kind of introspection from this thing that's happened. It's really tragic. It's so sad that a father was removed from his family, off this earth. And I would like to think that his legacy will go on, and his kids will definitely know of the things that he fought for and believed in. But it could happen to any of us. So maybe make sure that we as protectors and providers have prepared our family for the future. I guess in my own position right now, we don't have life insurance any longer, because I've boosted up assets high enough that perpetually, if I wasn't present, my wife would have enough to live for the rest of her life, just passively, with the dividends that come off of this. And I've talked to her a few times. She's not as interested in the finance things, but I've kind of given her directions to say, hey, this account, you don't need to sell anything, just harvest dividends. It'll pay for things to come for years. She doesn't really like listening to the finances all that much, but I've tried to educate her enough to say, here's where our assets are. Here's how. Here's some things to be aware of. It might be good to get a financial advisor, but be really careful, because several of those are charlatans. You got to be really careful about who you pick and the costs they have. But I've tried to do that. So some thoughts for today is, as fathers, do you have enough life insurance to cover financially for your family? And do you have a legacy should you get taken away? You have some messages for your kids when you're gone that they can open in various times in their life? Or have you taught them good principles in their life so that you leave a legacy of teaching with them too? So I don't know, any other thoughts about this event that's happened, or the financial aspects, or what do you guys think? Did this event make you guys think of anything different in your life? And we're all trying to teach each other, and be better as fathers and providers in this life. And so thanks a bunch. We'll see you. Bye.